Hello and welcome. This is Japan, and we just had Stand and Deliver. I figured we would review the card. Honestly, just with before we even jump into it, it wasn't a bad card at all. I really thought of course, the I think the matches and the storyline going into it were a little bit bigger than what we were delivered on some of them, but overall, I think it was still a fun and good card. I just wish there'd been a little bit more craziness. I mean, is that a bad word to say? I just felt like the big thing they ran into was like a lot of their champions were new, so they weren't going to flip titles off of them. But then there's not a lot of variety. But I guess the theme of the night was to give the last chance to certain people, and that kind of feels very poignant in the two titles that flip. So let's jump into it. We had a countdown show card, what that card match. I don't even know if we count that really on the card. It was a big 10-man multi tag match. Basically, it was the Birthright versus Ren Sinclair, Shiloh Hill, Hank and Tank, and EK Prosper. Now, my big fan about this was Birthright should have won. They were the faction here. I don't understand that type of stuff. Like, when you have a faction, they kind of need to win those games. They should have a little bit better being on the thing. Like they're all together. They've worked together. They should be a little better than a makeshift tag of all that. They really should have done something like that. There were some pretty decent spots. Pretty much, I feel like Ren Sinclair was one that had the best showing out of anybody on this. She was able to just kind of do her things, and she had a little bit of back and forth with Charlie Dempsey because they used to be in a faction. So I think all of that really worked out. I think I'd overall put the match in a C. It was a decent pre-show match. There was no real stakes in it for me, and like I said, I really think having Birthright lose here just kind of relegates the faction to being exactly what we kind of assumed it was going to be, just kind of a nothing faction. So unfortunately, but that's what it is. So right off the bat, for the actual card, we had the women's championship match. This is kind of a weird thing that I feel like they definitely shouldn't have made it first. I know they were trying to get like a fast, hot start. I really think if you would have swapped this with the Tatum Paxley and Blake Monroe match, I think it would have worked a little bit better, and it would also felt a little bit better for your card. Both matches were better, and really good. So it doesn't really matter in theory, but my thing is the women's title is the big title, so it should have the better booking, and having that triple threat, it was going to be crazy. And with the title change, you would think that's also what they wanted to do at the end of the show, to have a little bit more craziness. But I guess they were thinking, oh, we'll put a title change at the front of the show and the back of the show, and the rest of it will just be in the middle. I guess that's how they did it. But going back to the match, Lola Vice versus Jace versus Kendall Gray. There was a lot of stuff that could happen here. Honestly, my biggest gripe about it, it was just having Kendall Gray lose here. I'm glad she didn't take the pin, but Kendall Gray not winning here was kind of heartbreaking. She's kind of deserved it. Very hot rookie start. I think they could have put the belt on her, and she would have done phenomenal. Out of the three women, she was the best wrestler. I would have to give her an individual grade of S. Just automatically, she did everything right in this match, and she looked like $1,000,000. So it kind of sucks. She sold great, the other two, but I kind of felt, like I said in the beginning, this is kind of like a last chance type of thing. And Lola Vice not getting the opportunity here, she was never going to get it again, because they've used her in this opportunity millions of times, and she's come up short. So they decided to pull the trigger here. I believe it was a terrible decision. Again, we'll see in hindsight how that works, but at the moment, I think it was definitely a bad idea. Nothing against Lola Vice, it's just it doesn't make a lot of sense for NXT to have somebody who's already established win the title there when she's more than likely either on her way out or working AAA events. It really feels like she didn't need this. She didn't need it now. She needed it like a year ago when she was floundering and stuff. And then with Jace, it would seem like this would be the perfect opportunity to bring her up to the main roster if you're ever going to do it. If they leave her on NXT, I really don't understand it, other than maybe a week or two to get her past WrestleMania to be maybe a rematch or something else, or a match against Gray and put Gray over once or something like that. I just feel like there's something that she should be by May back on the main roster. I think that's kind of how it felt like they were talking about, but they leave her on the NXT roster. I don't see her ever getting out of there. which is unfortunate for her. But overall, I'll put this match in a solid A. I think it was a great way to start off the show. I just really wish that it would have got the love that should have been either the main event or the co-main event. It kind of feels disrespectful to go first when there was two other women's matches afterwards. So I think that would be the only thing, my big gripe. The other two did solid, but Kendall Gray for sure was MVP. Next up, we had the men's tag team championships. This match absolutely cooked because it was, Vanity Project's first PLE, and then Los Americanos. I want to say this might be one or second of their maybe first PLEs because I think no Pete Dunne's had a few, and I know they were together on like NXT UK, but I don't really know if they ever got like a huge showing when they were on NXT compared to anything else. So I don't know. I could be wrong about that, but Vanity Project went out there and showed what they've been doing since they've been on Evolve. I'm a fan of them because you see them from like the start to the finish. You kind of like to see that type of stuff. They had a pretty solid title defense, decent ring like outside the ring work by El Grande Americano and Jackson Drake. I put it in a solid B. I thought it was a really good tag team match. I think they did exactly what they could do for the 13 minutes that they had out there and made an entertaining match. Next up, we had Soul and Zarya against each other. Their big rivalry, friendship ending moment came ahead here. I think two big things on it is that I don't think it was ever going to outlive the hype because the hype behind them getting into a match compared to the match was always probably going to be disappointment because when you build something up so good and you kind of like frame it as being the end, it's hard to live up to that. There's very few matches that can do that. And two, I really think Zarya should have won. I think Soul could have ate this pin a lot easier than Zarya getting buried even further down the card because now Zarya really doesn't have anything to do when Soul's probably like 95% loaded to be into the main roster. And even if this is to send Soul to the main roster and leave Zarya behind, Zarya is kind of sitting around with a big L, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense to have her here lose. I just really don't get that. The match itself, like I said, it was disappointing for what you thought it was going to be. It's still a solid match. I think I'd also put it in B. I think it's slightly less than the men's tag match. I really feel like they could have done a little bit more of like just, I don't know, maybe more brutality, more like just kind of going after each other. I know they started off that way and they had a few moments. I just feel like they kind of fell into the normal pace of a match. And I do think they also should have got a little bit more time, as this being the hottest storyline easily from the last, or like the start of the year. This being in the middle of the card and having only 13 minutes doesn't feel right compared to even like some of the other matches being a little bit more. I just felt like there could have been a way to just let this thing be, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 minutes or like late, and then like have just a little bit more brutality, and I think it could have really changed it up a little bit. Then we had Miles Bourne versus Joey Gargano. Johnny Gargano. I always call him Joey. I don't know what it is. Interesting choice here to have, Joey come down here and do it. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I know a lot of people were upset about having a lot of main roster people on this card. I honestly don't mind as long as they lose. Because if like Jerry Gargano wins here, you just bury Miles Bourne. It was the same thing with Los Americanos. Like they can use them if they really want to have that extra star power and do that type of stuff. But if they end up winning and taking out NXT people, that doesn't help NXT out. So if with that type of stuff, I think it's okay. Honestly, this match might just be me, like a me thing. I just really didn't enjoy it too much. The start of it with having like, he's been depressed and not wanting to do anything, and then tries to get the roll up. I thought that was a really good touch. There was a couple other things that I thought they did well, but overall, I just kind of thought it was a boring match. Nothing against Miles Bourne. I've just never really been too crazy of a fan of his. He kind of lacks just anything like super crazy that I'm like, oh my god, this is a different person. And like obviously he has a little bit of trouble on the mic sometimes, and his character in general is just nothing crazy. So I think it kind of just makes him a little bit of a vanilla champion. He needed somebody to really go after him like Joey Gargano, but they kind of built it up with just like not until like the last like week that Joey just was like, I want that title type of thing. So It'll be interesting what they do with Joey after this, and with Miles. I think they just really need to give him a good pairing for this championship reign to be a little bit better. But this was his first defense, I think, or like he only had it for like 30 days, so it wasn't like he was going to lose. So put that in C, but if you put it a little higher, I probably wouldn't be upset about it. Then we had Tatum Paxley versus Blake Monroe. Honestly, this match just had a lot of good moves in it. The both of them have really good ring chemistry. I kind of like really wanted to put this up as being like the top match, but I feel like Kendall Gray really survived and made everything else really good on that triple threat. Because if it wasn't for that, I think that this match could have definitely taken it over and possibly even been like an S tier match. It just was so close to being there. Both Tatum Paxley and Blake Monroe were just on the top of their game. So I think it was a solid A. If you put it up in S tier, I would not be arguing against you on it because I could definitely see it being up there. Me personally, I just think between a little bit lack of time and a little bit of like some of their moves wasn't like perfect, like, which I don't really care about. I'm just looking for matches that are B or better to really be on these cards. So I really think it was still really enjoyable. Next up, we had the Fatal 4-Way for the NXT Championship. This is honestly, this match I really didn't have much of a like, hey, I'm excited about this. The men's division has been kind of lacking ever since Obafemi and that latest crop went up to the main roster. So unfortunately, this was kind of like that. I didn't really care who won. I figured it was going to be Tony D because pretty much if you don't have him win here, his character's dead and you might as well not use him anymore. But I don't really see his title reign being much of anything, and I don't really see them doing much with his character. There's just certain people that they have that are good wrestlers, but they either sandwich them with like a bad gimmick or just some bad luck on if they win or lose, and it just kind of ends up being mid for them. And this match itself had some decent moments. I think most of the moments came from Ricky Saints and Ethan Page, which Ethan Page looked like $1,000,000 out there. Joe Hendry, the champion, didn't really get much of a you know, go at it. A couple good things of offense here and there, but he kind of seemed a little weak. And obviously Tony D'Angelo picking up the win made him look good, and he had a decent match to do that. So I think I'd put it in a B, and I think I put the show overall into a B. I feel like the show itself was really good. I just think like the lack of wanting to do anything that was crazy is probably where I kind of draw the line, because I just felt like this is like their WrestleMania. They should have done something to really put them in a different ball game or a different vein. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, or wanting to see crazy stuff happen all the time. But I feel like with WrestleManias and stuff like that, you kind of need to have something where it's just so crazy that you think about it, you talk about it, and there wasn't really anything like that on this card at all. So I like I said, good matches, but definitely could have been better. But until next time, this has been Japan. Tell me how you guys enjoyed it in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye, guys.